Ticats Audio Network. You're listening to Tiger-Cats Postgame, streaming live on Ticats.ca and the Ticats All Access app.
Well, that's not the way they drew it up. Ticats lose to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, drop to 0-2, 30-8, the final from Saskatchewan. Louie B, Andy Fantuz, Tiger-Cats postgame. We're going to be joined by head coach Orlando Steinauer, presented by Access Storage. We'll also be joined by Simoni Lawrence as well. And, this was just not the Ticats' night for the second game in a row, Andy.
Not a lot of positives to pull from that game. Disappointing offensively and defensively, to be honest. Disappointing output, and it's disheartening. Making, even going through a few more injuries and a quarterback change, and really not finding any solutions that seem to give any momentum.
Nothing going right for the Ticats, offensively, defensively. You mentioned the quarterback change. Dane Evans came into the game, went 3 for 10 for 21 yards, and more than half of that was on one 11-yard completion to Jalen Acklin. Of course, Jeremiah Masoli was 17 of 25 for 135 yards, 2 interceptions. And it's not like Cody Fajardo had an outstanding game, but he did what Zach Collaros was able to do last week, and that was extend plays with his legs, get that little extra second, have that little extra second and make that extra look, and really was effective. He wasn't great, but he was effective, and he was kind of the reason the Saskatchewan was able to get out of this with the win.
Yeah, he got the job done when he needed to. He did run for a few key first downs and a big touchdown, and he had he had a lot of success throwing downfield, and he just didn't need to throw a lot in the second half, and they just they ran the ball to try to run the clock out because they had the big lead. So there was not a lot of problems I saw with Cody's game, and lots of things to clean up defensively and for the Hamilton Tiger-Cats.
Yeah, you mentioned what Cody Fajardo did on the ground. 7 carries for 66 yards. 9.4 yards per carry for Cody Fajardo, including a 22-yard longest run, and you mentioned that touchdown. That's to go along with William Powell, who also had a pretty good game, 16 carries for 82 yards. And defensively for the Ticats, we're going to get into the injuries that they continue to pile up here for Hamilton. They were already without Dylan Wynn in this game. Then you lose Mike Daly. Then Joe Van Santos Knox gets ejected. This depth of the Ticats, which we talked about as their strength for so much during the camp, is really being tested early on and early in this season.
Yeah, unfortunate with the injuries, and getting some guys some experience early in the season can pay off in the long run, and get your team have better depth as the season progresses. But most of those yardage on the ground were in the second half, and I thought the defense was played pretty good in the first half, and they just couldn't find a way to get a turnover or make a big stop when they really needed it. They got help from a few penalties. Just not much of positives to draw from that one.
You mentioned the penalties. We talked about it at Tiger-Cats at the half. You and I were talking about it right away because there were opportunities for the Ticats to capitalize on penalties that Saskatchewan had, and they did a couple of times on the eventual touchdown drive. That was extended. First of all, they got better field position because of a penalty on the kick return. Then the drive was extended because of a penalty. Saskatchewan took 20 penalties for 187 yards. Hamilton had a total of 201 yards on offense. So you're talking about, having the benefit or having the advantage of 185 penalty yards against your opponent, and you still only scored 8 points.
Yeah, that's a shocking number. You gotta have more output off those penalty yards, especially when you're giving up so many points off turnovers. You got to look at those two things in comparison, kind of putting them in the same category. And it's just you're not getting anything from that. You had the one touchdown, like you said. It's just not enough, and you're gonna have to find ways to pull some spark out of these situations when you have an opportunity from a mistake from the other team.
Yeah, and 30-8, the final in Saskatchewan. The Ticats dropped to 0-2, and we're going to take a look around the league. This was the last game of the season, but 0-2, 14-game schedule. That's going to be talked about a lot, but it's still 2 games in to a long season. There's a cliche that the season doesn't start till Labor Day. Overly used cliche in Canadian Football League repertoires, but there is some truth to that, and you want to be playing your best football at the right time. And I think with what we've seen so far, 0-2 is not the end of the world, but it's clear the Ticats need to be better all around.
Most certainly, and it's especially disheartening going into this bye week. There's going to be a lot of pressure built up externally around the city and in the media, us talking about it, and then the players are going to go home or go whatever they're doing for the bye week and really have that sour taste in their mouth and just really not a lot of positives to build on. So they're going to have to flip a switch and sooner than later. But to answer your question, in 14 games, yes, 2 games, it's not the end of the world. There's a long season to turn it around, but we got to start with a baby step, and we got to start somewhere. And there's a lot of things that need attention. There's
going to be talk throughout the next couple of weeks. We're going to hear it a lot about the quarterbacks, and I think what we saw when everybody calling for Dane Evans the last 2 games, Dane goes out there and he's running into the exact same issues that Jeremiah is. He doesn't have enough time. His receivers aren't on cue with their route running. There's some miscommunication. Something's not clicking between quarterback and receivers. Does that happen? Does that happen as a receiver? Like, what have you seen? Because it just seems like something's not clicking right now between the receivers with all the different bodies coming in, the changes in what we're seeing, and the quarterbacks. Have you been in a situation like this where it just seems like nobody's on the same page?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anyone's getting open downfield. It could be the defense is well prepared, but with their game plan, or we're just not winning the battle. So there were a few personnel changes leading into this game. Looks like we got to take a break here, and we'll come back to that one.
Yeah. We'll continue our thoughts here. We're pleased to be joined by the head coach of the Hamilton Ticats, Orlando Steinauer. And Coach O, what's said after a game like that? Coming off the field into the locker room, how do you address your team after a game like that?
Well, at the end of the day, we're finding out information about who we are in 2021. And so, for us, the bye week probably comes at a perfect time. We got to do a deep dive and figure out who we are. We know where we're at. We got to figure out which way we're going. So there's no hooping and hollering. It's pin quiet. They understand what happened out there tonight.
Coach Andy here. What are you asking of the players and the coaches over the next 7 days before they return to the stadium?
Yeah, real simple. Just look yourself in the mirror. It starts with me. I got to be better. That's the first thing I told them. And I'm just going to ask the same thing of them. Are they doing everyday thing they can to help us be the best we can be?
You've preached next guy up mentality in the 2 years of you being the head coach here. Did you? It's hard to expect to be called on this early. I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses for your team here, but it just seems like injuries have really decimated you through the first 2 weeks here.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, there's no doubt that's just what the facts are. But we're no excuses. That doesn't matter. That's part of football. And the bottom line is we're not good enough to win football games right now.
Coach, appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is the head coach of the Hamilton Ticats, Orlando Steinauer, and our post-game interview with Coach O is presented by Access Storage. We'll be joined by Simoni Lawrence in just a couple of minutes there, but, I think that basically tells you everything you need to know about Coach O in that, 90 seconds we had with him there was we got to be better. You got to look yourselves in the mirror, and guess what, guys? It starts with me. Coach isn't going. He's not throwing anybody under the bus. I don't think anyone was expecting him to come on here and say, "Yeah, listen, our receivers got to be better. Our quarterbacks got to be better." Like nobody's expected him to say that. But for a coach to take ownership and responsibility like that, it starts with me. I've got to be better, and I'm expecting the same out of you.
Yeah, it starts from the top, and you hit it on the head. So that's the kind of response that can motivate you as a player, and he's totally right. You're going to go home and look yourself in the mirror, and are you making every decision that can help this football team win? And those decisions might be an individual decision about what you're doing in this moment, or how you're preparing for the next day of practice, or the next training session if you're on the bye week. But it's all those individual battles will result in a better team effort.
And again, Coach would not make excuses. I wouldn't expect him to come on here and say, "Hey, yeah, once we lost Mike Daly, it was really all downhill. We never had a shot." But a guy like Mike Daly, he's so much more valuable than his actual CFL resume, what he can do on the field, what he can do off the field. I mean, Mike Daly, losing him defensively, I don't think the Ticats were horrible tonight. I thought they had a pretty decent game. They kept their offense in it through most of, especially in the second half when they're trying to get points. But Mike Daly, losing him, obviously a tough blow.
Yeah, he's a general on the field, and he's one of the captains of the team. So you never want to lose a guy like that. And I don't know how much the communication would have been affected from him, just him alone. But you got Santos Knox getting knocked out of middle linebacker spot. So right up the gut of your defense. You got new personnel in there. I mean, I thought Katsantanis played well. I mean, I know he had at least 7 tackles. So he came in, and good for him and get his first CFL action. But losing a guy like Mike is irreplaceable, not just for his production, but his leadership out on the defensive field.
Yeah, well said. And just running down some of the stats here, Ticats, Jalen Ackland leading the way with 51 yards for 3 catches on 51 yards. Brandon Banks, 5 catches on 30 yards. And then you go down the list, Tim White, Sean Thomas-Erlington, Pappy White, Nikola Klinich. They just really couldn't get anything going offensively. And when you can't get your passing game going early, you really can't do anything with your running game. And I think, the Ticats really want to see what they have in Sean Thomas-Erlington, but when you're playing from behind and when you're trying to play catch-up, it's hard to go to your run, especially when it's not working, and he's only averaging, 3 yards per carry.
Yeah, you're just not going to win any football games when you only have 2 completions over 10 yards down the field. So the only thing that was really working for them was some of that unconventional trickery, some of the screens behind the line, the shovel passes, the option passes, and then there was just a couple throws to Jalen Ackland that we had Mazzoli had some success on, but. We've got to find a way to get open and find those receivers and just create some offensive rhythm.
You got a question for Andy Fantuz. You've got a chance to ask Andy anything. You can use Twitter or Instagram. Shoot us a message and include the hashtag AAA, and Andy will get your questions throughout the night here on Tiger Cats postgame. Of course, streaming live and only at ticats.ca and the Ticats All Access app. And, we talked about going into the bye 0-2, and Coach talked about it. He said it, that this is almost the perfect time for the bye week. And I want to ask our player interview here, of course, presented by Access Storage, Simoni Lawrence. Simoni, is this kind of the perfect time for the bye week, do you think, right now, considering the first 2 games here?
Exactly. Sorry. Yeah, I think so, 100%.
Hey, Simoni, Andy here. What does this bye week going to look like for you personally?
Personally, just finding ways to get better, as a group, communicating with the guys and seeing how we can get better. We need to execute better. We need to do a lot of shit better because doesn't look like Tiger Cat standard football. So we all just got to look ourselves in the mirror, and like usually bye weeks you go spend time with family, but I think for this bye week we need to all self-evaluate and find a way to get ready for Montreal.
Coach had mentioned that, basically what you just said there is you got to look yourself in the mirror. As a veteran, as someone who's been here a while and been through, some tough times and some good times, where do you see yourself in helping some of the younger guys kind of this week, making yourself available? Is that something that you're going to kind of embrace on this bye week?
100%. I'm not going anywhere. I think it's one of those times where we just got to really get it together, especially with the shortened games, no preseason games or anything. This is a time we can really get ahead of the game, get healthy. A lot of guys are playing nicked up, and just find a way to get ready for Montreal. Because and the great thing about the culture is we got a consistent coaching staff who's never gonna not coach us hard and do the things that got us to Grey Cups in the past. So, as long as we stay together and stay focused, we can turn this around quick.
Simoni, both the games so far, you've gone against a quarterback who is mobile and able to extend the play, and it doesn't get any easier in your third game with Vernon Adams Jr. You've been very close to creating some sacks and bringing them down at key moments in the game, but just have escaped the grasp. And not you personally, but the team. How disheartening is that as a defense when you can get them off the field or put them in second and long, and you kind of let them escape and make a play downfield or run for a first down?
I mean, of course, it's always frustrating. We're professional football players, and we're expected to make plays. And we got to also remember they're professional football players, and they're going to try to make plays. So, we're just trying to make more plays than them, and they're trying the same thing. But we got to do a better job getting off the field when we have the opportunity.
Sim, we appreciate you doing this. Enjoy your bye week. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Tuz. Appreciate it.
That is Simoni Lawrence, that post-game player interview presented by Access Storage. And I think it's going to be a consistent message we hear this week from the Ticats. It's going to be something kind of, and I'm sure in the post-game scrums and the stories that are going to come out of tonight, we got to take a look at ourselves in the mirror and see what we got, because a lot of people, myself included, looked at this Ticats team and looked at this roster and the names and the continuity of what happened in 2019. But I think this is a reminder for everyone. 2019 was a long time ago. 2019, that's 2 years on the body. That's on everybody. They're gonna look in the mirror, and Andy, I'm sure you've gone into some bye weeks where that's been the messaging. Take a good hard look at yourself in the mirror and figure out what we got here. So where do they go from here?
Yeah, there's always ups and downs in a season, and I think the approach of both Coach and Simoni is perfect in this scenario of just figuring out what you can do individually to make yourself better that will collectively make the team better, and not making any excuses, and just getting taking care of your body, but not losing focus and staying with it, and I think that's a good approach going into the bye week.
All right, I want to get back to some bye week plans. I want to know what you used to do on your bye weeks, and we'll get to that coming up here on Tiger Cats postgame. But let's revisit, and I don't even want to do this because I know the one that we've talked about 2 games in a row now that has not worked. But let's revisit our 3 keys to victory, presented by CarStar. And number 1, let's revisit it. Keys to victory, number 1.
Number 1 was own the line of scrimmage, and that's going to be a fail. We didn't really – the Ticats couldn't pick up any chunks of yardage on the run. They couldn't slow down that defensive line. There were sacks, pressure, forced fumble, They were just wreaking havoc all game long. And on the defensive side of things, giving up over 100 yards rushing, 140 yards rushing. You're just not going to win games like that, and not creating any sacks. Not a win for number one.
No, 167 yards rushing. Yeah, 106. Because I thought, my math was right on yours. But 167 yards allowed on the ground compared to just 45 yards rushing for the Ticats. And then you mentioned the sacks. 6 quarterback sacks, 2 forced fumbles to just 2 for the Ticats. I think own the line of scrimmage. It was something that Luke had said in our pregame, and the Ticats were just unable to do it. And again, we're going to look at injuries, and that's going to be a huge part of it. Chris Van Zyl appeared to have gotten knocked up a little bit at the end of the first half. And we didn't see him the rest of the night, so they were already kind of down bodies. Ted Laurent, I don't think he was as noticeable a player as maybe we thought he was going to be. And as I mentioned, Dylan Wynn was gone, and then you lose Jovan Santos Knox, and kind of you can't even call it a freak penalty, because as a player, you got to be aware where the officials are at all time, because again, all right, let's go with number 2 here. Let's go to number 2 here on your keys to victory. How'd they do on this one?
Number 2 was attack the middle of the field, and that one's getting a big X for me. 2 games in a row, no completions in the middle third of the field over 10 yards is just unacceptable. Only 2-3 throws even in that area. And you're going to have to find ways to spread out the linebackers and find holes behind them, in front of them, beside them. You just can't win by only throwing it outside the numbers, and that's the only completions we're getting that aren't swing passes or little screens right now. So, the Tiger Cats are going to have to find a way to get open downfield or design things differently so that they put themselves in a situation to have some success.
Are they missing an Andy Fantuz, a Mike Morreale, a Canadian who's got size? And I mean, because their only Canadian receiver is David Ungerer, and they're really and Tyler Chernowski is out there as well. But Ungerer was a non-factor. He was targeted once. I mean, are they missing a guy who could be a ratio breaker? And again, I'm going to put you on the spot, because if you were not in the booth here beside me, you would have been one of the first names that would come up. But are the Ticats missing that big receiver, that guy with size who can go in the middle and bring down those balls?
Yeah, I think whether it's national, international, it doesn't really make a difference. But they're certainly missing a big target. And however, in 2019, they didn't really have that big target either, and they did have a lot of success throwing down the middle of the field and spreading the ball around. So they're missing something. It's easy right now when you're looking across the field and seeing those big bodies make play after play and continue drives for them. But they're missing something, that's for sure. And I can't wait to kind of look at the film from the game film perspective, the bird's eye view, and really see what was going on. I saw a couple plays on the TV where the linebackers were actually not only dropping into their zones, but sort of folding over into those bender routes that the Ticats are typically having success with. So it could be a good game plan against their offense. So I'm looking forward to looking at the film, but there's gotta be a way to get some balls completed down the middle of the field.
You're listening to Hamilton Tiger Cats post-game on Ticats.ca and the Ticats All Access app. We're recapping the CarStar 3 keys to victory. So they didn't own the line of scrimmage. They weren't getting passes down the middle, and I think I already know where we're going here for number 3. Your number 3 key to victory for the Ticats.
Win the turnover battle. And 5-1 is not even a battle, as Mike put it. Just unacceptable. You're getting turnovers in every which way. You're having fumbles by receivers, fumbles when like sack fumbles, just errant throws, overthrows for an interception. You're having drop balls off the receiver's hand for an interception, and then a few turnovers on down. So the Rough Riders are racking it up every which way, and the Tiger Cats did get that one fumble on the punt, which flipped the field position for them, but right after that they had 2 sacks in a row. So unfortunately, nothing came of it other than a field position switch.
Yeah, and you mentioned it at the end there. Actually, turnover battle comes down to 6-1.
6-1, yeah.
6-1, yeah. Turnover on downs on the last drive there. So 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions, 2 downs, and such a great point. I mean, usually, like when we're talking, they're doing it every which way. They're scoring every which way. They're scoring pretty. They're scoring ugly. They're turning it over every which way, and it's got to be demoralizing, not just for the offense, but we had talked about it before. Cameron Kelly goes out there and says, hey, we want to get twice as many turnovers as we give up as a defense. That's pretty disheartening when your offense is turning the ball over 6 times. You get the 1 on the fumble recovery, but really, 2 games into this game, you're down 9-1 in the turnover battle. No, you're not going to win football games ever if that's that ratio. No,
they have a long way to go if they're going to double up on the opponent in the turnover ratio throughout the season. I guess the silver lining, though, is that it is only 2 games in, and if you put those games behind you and look forward, then you have a chance to win 1 game at a time, and that's the only thing you can do in this point.
Yeah. This is Tiger Cats postgame on the Ticats All Access app, ticats.ca, exclusively here. All right, we mentioned this. The Ticats are going into the bye week, and you'd kind of talked about it a little bit there. I asked you, what you would do personally after an 0-2 start, but just in general, what would a typical bye week look like? Take us through, even right now. So they mentioned it was a quiet locker room. You were telling me during the game that some guys probably leaving right from Saskatchewan because that's how a bye week works. I'm just curious, what does a typical bye week look like in this Canadian Football League?
Yeah, sure. So there's 13 games before their next game. So you typically have 5 or 6 days off, and they would probably have an extra day before their full 3-day work week of practice. So what that looks like is they're probably just completely free, no commitments until the 22nd next Sunday, and then that's probably when they'll break down this film, and they'll break down this film, then have a light run, a light workout, and just make sure everybody's back and feeling good and ready for day 1, which would be that Monday leading into the Friday game. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday practice, and then Thursday having their walk through the day before the game. So for me, if you had any nicks or bruise, small injuries or big injuries, those would be the priority in a bye week. So if you are injured, I wouldn't be going home. If I lived out of town, I would be sticking around and making sure I'm getting treatment and doing everything I can do to get my body healthy to perform once we get back. If you're healthy, then that's an opportunity to maybe spend some time with your family, get football out of the mind for a little bit. Of course, you're going to watch the film on your own time. Players have access to that at the tip of their fingers, so they can watch the film. But go home, spend some time with your family, get away. But you're going to be chomping at the bit to get back around the guys and create some positive energy. You could look at this. You could look at the Tiger Cats in a situation 2 ways. That it's a lot of pressure going into a bye week, and they have a week to think about this ugly game. Or you could say, okay, this is a great time to, like Coach was saying, look yourself in the mirror, make some adjustments, and really, really be honest with yourself in that mirror. And are you doing everything you can to be the best player you can be and the best teammate you can be to help this team win?
Do you think because they went to Dane Evans Dane Evans as a starter in week 4? Or do you think they kind of reset and like, hey, neither of you really showed us what we were hoping to see. This competition is back on. We're not going to name a starter, but we're going to do what we did in camp. We're going to switch up reps. Like, how does Coach O approach this situation that he's got right now?
Well, that's a great question. I like how. Here, let me answer it first, and then I'll give you some background.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's a competition coming back. I guess I wouldn't be surprised in any of the 3 kind of solutions of having Mazzoli come back as a starter, having Dane Evans come back as a starter, or having a competition. Really not a lot to draw from this game that could lead me to think one way or the other. I liked how our colleague Mike Morielli described it as if Coach would have made that made the switch coming out of the halftime into the start of the third quarter, then it would have been looking as a change-up in the game instead of waiting until 2 more interceptions, and then it's something that you're forced to do. And then Dane Evans comes in and has no success whatsoever. So where do you go from here? Not a good situation to be in.
Yeah, and I think I had seen it on my own Twitter even in the course of the 15 minutes of Dane not being in there and then going in there. There's kind of and again, Twitter is a great place to share your opinions, and we always appreciate your opinions, including on our Ask Andy Anything segment. But again, you look at this game, you watch the quarterbacks. I'm not pinning this game on Jeremiah Masoli. I'm like he didn't cost them this game. He threw, he had a fumble on a great sack. I mean, and that was a sack that eventually was the last play of the game for Chris Van Zyl. So, obviously if Chris Van Zyl is 100% healthy, does that sack happen? Maybe not. Maybe Jeremiah is still out there. There was a lot of overthrows, but Dane Evans went out there, and I understand that he's relatively cold, but when you have 2 quarterbacks and when you have somebody who's ready to drop in at the drop of a hat, I think I don't want to say I'm encouraged because it's not the right word, but I hope that people who are pining one way or the other that, hey, it's got to be Dane Evans or it's got to be Jeremiah Masoli, you can look at both of them tonight and say, it's really not on our quarterbacks. It's on the other aspects of the game that just aren't clicking right now. And you had mentioned it. Those passes in between, they're just non-existent. Like, they're just like, I don't know what's going on. But again, I preface, whatever the opposite of preface is, I wrap that all up by saying, it's game 2, guys. Like, let's all breathe as a fan base, and there are things to criticize, and that's what we're doing, and there are things to work on, but the sky is not falling. We're still here. The team still has 12 more opportunities to prove that they can be better and they can hit their stride at the right time.
Yeah, neither quarterback is missing wide open receivers. They're constantly having pressure in their face. Like, I'm looking forward to looking at that film to see if there were reads that were missed or not, but the blame has got to be put on everyone individually, and nobody should be pointing fingers at anyone. And I'm glad that Coach O said that and came out that right from the start, saying, it starts with me. I have to be better. I'm sure the offensive and defensive coaching staff are thinking the same thing. I'm sure Jeremiah and Dane are thinking the same thing. Offensive line, just it goes all the way down. But we're not seeing any glaring mistakes out there, missing, wide open guys for touchdowns. We're not seeing people flash across the middle field wide open. You're not noticing a lot of blatant errors when you're watching the film for the first time, or watching the TV cut for the first time.
Explosive plays have been non-existent. And Coach mentioned that last week. He's like, hey, listen, when you can't play complementary football and when you're losing the battle in explosive plays, because it is so much more than than one play. It is the, okay, let's go. Like, there's a certain amount of energy you get from a 40-yard completion that we just haven't seen. We haven't seen those good vibes. And you mentioned it. You were hoping to see it from Speedy today, that positive, let's go. Like, and it's easy when you're scoring points. It's a lot harder when the points aren't coming as easy as you thought they would.
Yeah, 2 games. We only have 5 long passes completed, and they're all immediate tackles. They're catch the ball, get hit, or going out of bounds, or the touchdown. But regardless, there's no yak coming from downfield throws. The only time we're getting that yards after catch is on our little wide receiver screens and swing passes. And that should be complementary to your downfield passing, not the other way around. You could be in a situation that those unconventional routes or those extensions of your running game, the wide receiver screens, the swings, could open up some passes behind the linebackers, but we're just not seeing that part of it. So either way you look at it, it's a big glaring hole offensively.
Ticats slogging some serious miles before they get back home to open the season on Labor Day. And, of course, the Labor Day Classic also the home opener. And what a way to welcome everybody back to Tim Hortons Field this season. You can ask Andy anything by going on Twitter. We got a tweet up there. You can just hit us up on Twitter at Ticats using the hashtag AAA, Ask Andy Anything. We got one in here from Jeanette. Did it feel odd covering this game because you played on both sides? And Jeanette adds here that you were a Rough Rider when she went to her very first game in 2007, and it was October 14th, 2007, the first game, which you were a huge reason why the Rough Riders won that game. So for you, I mean, obviously we know you as a great Ticat. Riders will claim you as their own, as a great Rough Rider. Was it weird for you covering this game?
I wouldn't say weird is the way to describe it, but exciting. I do have, emotions both ways. Saskatchewan holds a dear place in my heart, and I have a lot of great stories of my time from there. And I actually remember that game you're speaking of, Jeanette, here in Hamilton. I remember when I was with the Saskatchewan Roughriders playing at Ivor Wynn. I was the guy who had to order like 80 to 90 tickets for my family and friends. So I had a big cheering section at the game, and the big tailgate party and all that, and that continued once I moved back home and became a Hamilton Tiger Cat. So just exciting to be covering a game featuring both teams.
All right, want to get to our player of the game, our player performance of the game. Who do you got in mind here for this one?
I'm going to go with Jonathan Woodard. He is the defensive end for Saskatchewan. I think he had 3 sacks, a forced fumble, just was all over the place, a big, strong defensive end, and wreaked a lot of havoc. On the other side, Leonard was equally as impressive, but I'm giving it to Jonathan Woodard.
Yeah, and a guy who's playing in just his second game in the Canadian Football League, and he looks like he's making himself right at home. He had some stints in Jacksonville, Atlanta, Miami, Buffalo, and again, he's one of those guys, and I'm always encouraged. I know you were someone who had a shot at the NFL and got a chance to be with the Chicago Bears with some time, and I'm always curious that guys who come up here and Luchez Purifoy, another example, who really buy in, especially in a city like Saskatchewan, because there's a big culture shock between, the Miami Dolphins and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And, I'm always impressed. So I think that's a great one. I'm going to go with Cody Fajardo for yours is the one that matters, but I'm going to go for Cody Fajardo because we can't be on the same page with everything. He had a great game, just efficient. And again, the difference was he's going to he's elite. This was another game that just kind of helps him establish that elite status, because he can do it with his arm and he can do it with his feet, and we saw him do both here tonight.
Certainly impressive output. One of the matchups we were highlighting pregame that didn't really come to fruition was looking to expose the left tackle, Lauderdale, and Jagari Davis. We didn't see any highlights against Lauderdale, and the only highlights we saw were Cody Fajaro sort of, getting him stuck in the mud a little bit, unfortunately. And don't kid yourself. Like, this is not something I think I could do, but stopping an elite athlete like Cody Fajaro, who's got a two-way go, is not an easy feat. But he was able to kind of shake him a couple times and get past him for big yardage, one of them being a touchdown.
Before we wrap up here on Tiger Cats postgame, I want to take a quick look around the league, because this was the final game of the weekend. And I think if you had told me heading into the bye week that Ticats would be the only team in the East Division without a win, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have believed you, Andy. But here we are. You got the 1-0 Montreal Alouettes. You got the 1-0 Red Blacks and the 1-1 Toronto Argonauts after 2 weeks of football. That's I don't think anybody saw that one coming.
No, and it's going to be the only winless team after 3 weeks because of the bye week. So not a good situation to be in your division, but it's you're only 1/7 of the way through the season, so lots of time to turn it around. Definitely don't want to start pointing fingers around each other at the locker room. It's going to be inevitable in the city to feel some blame and have some pressure. But inside the locker room, it's time right now. Right now is the time to really band together, stick together, and find ways to grow and improve.
And I think if you had if you could build the schedule, I don't think you would have put Winnipeg week 1, sold out stadium, Saskatchewan week 2. These are games that are tough to win anyway, right? On the road, opposing stadiums, sold out. You'd want these games spread out. The fact they're back-to-back to start the season, just not ideal at all.
No, I mean, there's a couple ways to look at that, I think. Going on the road 3 games in a row means that you're going to have 7 of your last 11 at home, which could be a good thing going down the stretch. Getting these tough matchups in the hostile environments out of the way, you could say that the schedule looks easier from here on in, but it's too early to make those claims right now. But you can't really look at the schedule, and I don't think you can complain because it is what it is, and you just got to deal with it. You can't control anything. You can't control that.
Yeah, and you know who else is 0-2? Bo Levi Mitchell and the Calgary Stampeders, right? The Edmonton Elks are 0-2. So a lot of teams are 0-2. It's a long season. Looking forward to at least 12 more games here sitting beside you, Andy. Thanks for doing this. It was a late one. Thanks for staying up. Appreciate it. The final score, it's the Ticats 8, the Saskatchewan Roughriders 30. For Andy Fantuz, I'm Louie B. We'll be back for Tiger Cats pregame presented by Active Green and Ross as the Ticats are in Montreal on August 27th.